Hey model kit builders, you may have seen some of these online. I've seen them on AliExpress. I bought them locally though. They're fluorescent panel liners from some sort of Chinese company. So I got these 5 here, and I thought I'd try them out, not only for panel lining, but just to see if they'll work in other parts of a model and or gashapon toys. So I'm in the middle of building this Gundam super deformed kit here. And this aerial has, these clear parts, and you're expected to put these lame stickers on them. But stickers are going to just peel off. Even though that sticker looks cool, it's going to peel off, which is not cool. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to shake this thing up. I think I'm going to just put various fluorescent colors on this thing. But I'm going to put this on the inside so I can't scratch the paint or whatever this liner stuff is made out of. Wow, that's definitely very bright. Okay. So I know I need to have this surface, which will be visible in the parts. I don't think the sides really matter. Although maybe it wouldn't hurt to put it in there anyways. So being a panel liner, it's obviously not as thick as paint, but it's actually a lot thicker than I thought it would be. Yeah, okay. So this brush applicator seems to be okay. It's pretty thick though, you're not going to be able to get fine detail out of this brush. So you might want to try using like a calligraphy pen or something, or a fountain pen. Although I do question, because this stuff is thick. We're going to eventually get to actual panel lining though, and then I'll try out the fountain pen nib thing. But for now, let me just get a few layers of this in here. I essentially want this thing to be opaque, or not, So it's going to take several layers. Maybe I'll do some different colors over here on this. I think I want green on the top of the head. So this thing has to be made green on the inside. Yeah, that's really thick. It's actually more like a paint. I mean, it reminds me of just a water-based paint. Alright, we'll let that dry. Let's see. I think maybe I'm going to do orange and pink on this one. So I think I'll put pink on these top surfaces here. I think the whole thing might have to be pink. I think I messed up already. Yeah. Well. Definitely going to take several coats. I'm going to guess it's going to take a minimum 3 coats, if not 5, because it is so thin. But it should dry pretty fast, hopefully. Alright, let me get some Gundam kind of gashapon things. This is a Senshi Forte Nightingale, and that thing's supposed to have yellow thrusters, so I figure I'd try some of this yellow stuff in this thing. time's gonna tell how many coats. That's a lot of panel liner in there, so hopefully that won't require too many coats, but it pulls towards the bottom, that's the issue. Let's see if I can actually leave the middle black. That's gray color. I think I'll do those 4 other ones a different color. I kind of wish I brought a blue now. I find even yellow paint has a hard time covering surfaces. So yellow panel liner is what to see. I just wipe off the rims, the edges later. It's gonna have to dry. This nightingale also. I have yellow in here, but it's not fluorescent. The beads are fluorescent though. So I'm gonna do a comparison. I'm just gonna only do this one side and leave the other side the way it is. I can get this thing out. There we go. Alright, now I have a Gundam Converge here. So this is painted, so I really don't want to mess this one up. And I just put some of the random detail recesses. I think I have to get my fountain pen for the really small stuff. Okay, let's see how well the pen works. I'll just put this aside. So here's a cheap generic pen. Honestly, I don't find any difference between the generic and the display one. So here's an issue. This opening is very small. Look, I can't even really dip the pen in there. And then this cap, it's very small. So that's a problem. I mean, especially when this gets low on fluid, right? It's going to be an issue. Alright, let's try adding some orange. There we go. That seems to work. Huh, that's asymmetric. Alright, so it seems to be okay on this particular converge figure. But yeah, getting the fluid, pretty bad. There's a big pool of fluid on this nib, but I think because it's kind of thick, it doesn't want to flow so fast, which can be good and bad. But in general, panel liner wants to flow quickly, so it can, go down a whole panel. Alright, let's try well, let me put this in some water. Clean that off so that channel stays clean. Let's switch to green and then try the display one, but I'm pretty sure there's no real difference. So I guess one thing you could do is just put it on this brush, but that makes life far more difficult, I think. Yeah, just like the other one. It takes some wiggling of the metal for the stuff to flow. It does seem to be a pretty thick one. Yeah, I can't have green thrusters. That makes no sense. But maybe I can put some green here. Yeah, that's not... Okay. So that's not flowing with the pen at all. Right, it's, you just saw me dip it in there. There it goes. Okay. Yeah, you gotta really flex the pen to make that stuff flow through the channel of the nib. Once you do that, it does seem to work. Okay. Let that dry. You'll notice the first layer of yellow. It's not the thickest. Over here, again, the first layer. Sorry, hit the focus. And this is literally yellow on yellow, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I'm going to put another coat in. this, cap this off. Or actually, we can now see this is dried, what's in the aerial thing. So obviously not very opaque. Alright, let that dry again. Alright, I guess it's time for another coat of yellow over here. This looks dry now. No, not 100%. Maybe this one. I see here with the brush it does flow because it's just there's so much liquid there. Be careful. This what's above this brush is hollow, so that might be containing a lot of liquid. That goes with the Tamiya panel liners too, which I generally use. Okay, I'm gonna see if that if it's easy to clean off the lip. Let's try with this wooden one. This is like an eyebrow Q-tip. Alright, so that's good. You know, that first layer did dry up there, but you can still go back and rub it off with a cotton swab and some water on it. Granted, if you left that for a few days, maybe it'd be impossible to remove. But a few minutes, it's still soft. Okay, So that's 2 layers. We'll let that dry again. Let's get the second layer on this. The brush is easy to work with. It's much better than a Tamiya brush. A Tamiya brush is like cut flat, so it's very wide, but this is tipped like a regular paintbrush. So you can see me swirling around in there very nicely. So that's a good thing about this. Sadly, these tanks are glued in, so I can't get them out. But the brush is long enough they can get in there. Okay, let's wait. Alright, I've put a cover over my light and it's kind of dark in here. So this these binders here, they're showing up pretty bright. Yeah, it's pretty impressive actually. But there's probably 2-3 coats of paint in there. Alright. So here's the binders. This is just yellow over silver. And only the jewels are, those 2 jewels are fluorescent. So really, nothing happens, right? But look at this. This is now 3 layers, and it is just craziness. It's just as bright as the beads now, and it's got 3 layers of that stuff. So you can actually use this almost as a paint, even though it's not really supposed to be. That's like 2 layers there. The bottom of the feet, though, those 2 little dots. That's just 1 layer that I applied with the steel pen thing, and then there's 2 layers in the big hole there. So hold on, it's hard to focus in the dark, but you can see it's just super bright. This is a 365 nanometer flashlight, which isn't even that good. You should have 395, I think. Oh wait, my bad. This is 395. I saw one online and it looked identical, and it's 365. All right, so now I only put one coat in this section here, and that's pretty bright, just with one coat. These dots here are just one coat. It's granted it's a pretty big dot, but one coat of this stuff. Amazing. Look at this. Really cool. Very bright. Now here, I actually decided, I put it in and then I took it out with the Q-tip and water. But even a little residual, you can see some sort of shininess there, but on this side, yeah, I don't think you get as much of it because it's just gold paint. So, so that's it for the yellows there. This is the second layer of this aerial part in pink. And let's see it through the plastic. Yeah, it's showing up pretty well, but it's still not opaque. I want it to look, you know, perfectly pink. Honestly, I should just use my fluorescent Vallejo paints for this, but I thought I'd do an experiment, you know. Here's the green with two layers in it. Wow, that's super bright. So once I get that to be really opaque, that's going to be really crazy, I think. And then this is just one layer right here with that orange, and it's pretty bright. Just one layer in there. So very impressive. So I do wonder, this consistency reminds me like it might be able to be pushed through an airbrush. It might be a little thick, but I think it might be able to work. So I took the eyes of this Gundam and I scuffed them up to 600 grit. There's some liquid mask on here, that's why it looks ugly. And I'm going to basically spray this green onto this, and then I'll just hand paint the black around the eyes because the eyes are raised. And then I'll take the mask off because it has a red chin and whatever the heck that is on a Gundam. So let's take a look at see how this works out. Alright, let's see how well this stuff flows over paint. This is Vallejo gunmetal, and let's see what happens here. I think I should better use a pen. Yeah, see, it doesn't really flow much because it's pretty thick. So that could be problematic. We gotta use a much smaller paintbrush, maybe. Yeah, I'm not really liking that. So, I didn't clear coat that gunmetal, so if I take this swab, I think it might remove a lot of the gunmetal, especially if it dries. Yeah, that's not good. Alright, so let's get one of these pens out again and see how this works, but I don't think it's going to work very well. Make sure there's not too much gunk here. Well, I guess if I wiggle it to start the flow, that definitely works. It's going to take several attempts though, because it's not laying on a bead very well. Something about the interaction with the Vallejo, I think. It doesn't want to stick to it. Okay, so the pen does work. It's definitely better than the brush for these tight lines. I'm not really sure why now it comes with a brush. If this is a panel liner, well, I guess Tamiya panel liners are just as thick, aren't they, the brushes? So maybe that's not an issue, but I feel it could have been improved upon. I mean, I guess it's pointed, so that's better than nothing, but it's still too wide to even get into this relatively wide panel gap. So here's the real test. Actual panel lines. These two panel lines, I have a pretty clean nib here, right? And it's gapped, so the stuff should flow. Let's see what happens. Alright. No flow. There we go. Well, it's actually flowing too much. So I think an issue, this is actually too thick. You know, Tamiya panel liner is so viscous. You touch it in one spot, you can just see it travel down the panel line. But this stuff is more like airbrush consistency. So it's not seeping into the crack as fast as a thin panel liner would. And so I'm gonna have to go over this gap here with the cotton bud, because it's just too much of it, right? It's overflowing outside of the actual panel line. Yeah, that's not very good. Not good. Yeah. So unfortunate. I really want it to work, but it's just too thick. It's I would call this a paint instead of a panel liner. Yeah, that's definitely, it's much wider than the actual panel gap, right? That line. You can see how it seeped out. Yeah, that's unfavorable. And the bottle itself is just the opening for the bottle is too small. Yeah, that's no different than just slapping it on with a paintbrush, right? So I have to go over all of those with an eraser or Q-tip or something. That's unfortunate. So I guess that's the conclusion, or the last part I'm going to bother showing about this. It's too viscous. It's too thick. You can just see it, on the brush. It's not really a liquid. It's not like water, at least. It's more like yeah, it's too thick. Now, in the defense of this thing, though, it does glow fantastically. Let me come back. I gotta dry this. Well, you saw me apply the panel liner, and in conclusion, I think it's too thick to be actually called panel liner. It doesn't flow like panel liner should. But it is a good consistency for airbrushing. So you can airbrush parts. That's what I'm going to use it for. I'm literally going to paint entire parts fluorescent. One thing is a comparison. This orange is not this QW stuff. This is Vallejo's fluorescent orange paint. So I airbrushed that onto that sort as well. And then all this stuff is clear coated with a matte finish clear coat, just rattle can stuff. So it takes a lot of layers to put this stuff to become opaque. This yellow is laid on so thick, like 3 or 5 times, that it finally, you can't see the blue behind it, but it took a lot of paint to do so. The smaller bits though, like those dots up in the head, that was just one big drop and it dried nicely. But the pink stripe, 3 applications at least. Back behind this chest piece, probably 5 or 6 applications. So it's really hard because it is not quite as thick as regular paint, but it's definitely thicker than real panel liner, like from Tamiya. Alright, so this is spinning, of course. I thought I'd actually spin all the things around. I'm going to turn the light off, and then, before I turn the light off, or actually I can do it while it's actually in the dark. But you won't see any fluorescent smudges very often in the bright light. But I noticed after the fact, there's a smudge of like fluorescence right here, and I think on the shield as well, right around here. I'll bring it out when I turn the lights off and put the fluorescent light on it. So lights off, fluorescent flashlight. So yeah, you can see right here there's a smudge of green. You can't see it in the bright light though. And then on the back of the head, right there's a big fingerprint mark. I went over this whole thing with alcohol Q-tips and to try to get all this off, and I washed my hands with like a scrub pad, but even so, I got a bunch of smudge marks. So this stuff is very effective. What I'm saying, it's not effective at like looking opaque, but the slightest bit of it will become fluorescent. So I think my next experiment is I'm going to mix this with like a photo shift paint, and we'll see if it can make a photo shift paint not only retain its photo shift color changing during regular light, but we'll see if it becomes fluorescent. I don't know what model I'm going to do that on, but that's my next goal because the consistency of this stuff is pretty thin. Alright, so let me get that thing spinning again. Nice, spin faster. No, that's too slow. I think this is the only fast speed here. Alright. Yeah, that green up there's a lot of layers, but it looks like it's lit up. These things, the shield things, I mean, that looks like an LED light to me. It's just so bright. Oddly though, my phone screen makes the body look like it's blue, but when I look at it with my own eyes, the body looks like it's pink, or possibly purple from the UV. I originally painted the backside of the headpiece green, but then I thought that's stupid because there's smoked plastic and there's a detail behind it, so I took that all off with alcohol, and then I painted the detail behind it orange and pink. Then the vents they're gunmetal, and then I filled in the cracks with orange to look like heat or something like that. The chest piece is actually not showing up as bright. I don't know why. There's a lot of pink behind there. Okay, so the thinnest lines, the thinnest coat of this stuff is quite noticeable. The green eyes were airbrushed and they look super bright. They literally look like they're glow-in-the-dark eyes. So very cool. Alright, let me put up another one, which it's hard to find this stuff in the dark. Here's that nightingale. And that plastic sword just glows by itself. Let me hit focus. Yeah, so all the green vents. Not the green vents, green thrusters. A little head detail. So yeah, it works pretty well. Let me try the next one, which is that Psycho Gundam, the Gashapon Senshi. I put some in the fingers, You know, some orange on the shield right there, in the back of the head, and the back of the legs. So the smallest dots really show up. It's quite impressive. The eyes are the way they are. I did not paint those eyes. That's just the way they came from Bandai. And the best for last is my STCS Nightingale. I put a little red up here in the top of the funnels there, all the yellow in the thrusters we discussed earlier. Alright, so lights out. UV on. So these decals are also, you know, fluorescent as well. Yeah, those thrusters look really cool with the blue beads in there. And then you can see the tiny red dots. Those are all the tips of the funnels on the verniers. But really, it's all about these thrusters. It's crazy. It looks so cool. Alright, I don't know why I'm so fascinated. But all this fluorescent stuff is new to me, so I haven't built models in a long time. You know, up until I started this YouTube channel 2 years ago, I really didn't do model making. So, not for a long time at least. Alright, well thank you for watching, guys. Yeah, just the stuff is very powerfully effective. It's just that the consistency is not what you expect. This QW model stuff. It's just a little too thick for an actual panel liner. And then the bottle itself is just not a really good design, because you can't get a paintbrush in there easily, or a nib in there easily. So it's really hard to get large amounts out, or even small amounts out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next, I guess, tool-related video? Is this a tool? I don't know. Some sort of model-making video. Alright, see you guys.